This expert skier survived 2 avalanches after hitting the slopes. This story interested you? Come with me. Caught in a massive avalanche and buried alive under a blanket of snow, Ken Scott knew death was just a matter of time. Ken Scott kicked off the covers and leapt out of bed at his home in the Rocky Mountain town of Mullen, Idaho. It was 6 a.m. on January 7, 2020, and he was on a mission. He'd just heard on the radio that the nearby Silver Mountain Resort had been blessed with nearly 1.5 feet of new snow. A self-confessed ski addict who'd worked in the industry for the past 30 years as a ski patroller and equipment salesperson, he didn't want to miss this big dump of fresh powder. These conditions are what skiers live for, even veterans like Scott, who, at 55, still skied 100 days a year. His wife, Ruth Scott, also loved hitting the slopes, but today she had other plans, so he ventured off alone. When Scott reached Silver Mountain's locker room, he bumped into his friend Rebecca Hurlen-Patano, 58, a former ski instructor who had also been a regular on these slopes for more than 2 decades. "Can you believe it?" she said as they changed into their boots. 16 inches. "Are you ready?" As if she had to ask, for the next hour the pair skied on various runs under a lightly overcast sky, making fresh tracks. They were both in a playful mood, bantering as they tackled the steep runs. Once, while heading up in the lift, they noticed that the 6,200-foot Wardna Peak, home to the challenging expert-level trail named 16-1, was now open. It had been closed all season over concerns that skiers might cause an avalanche. But that morning, patrols had set off 13 explosive charges on the peak to clear loose snow from its upper slopes, reducing the chance of a snowslide. "What do you think?" asked Hurlen-Patano. "Let's go for it." Scott replied, "Avalanche on 16-1. There's no direct chairlift to 16-1, so skiers reached it by traversing through deep snow and trees." Along the way, Scott and Hurlen-Patano recognized other Silver Mountain regulars also heading for the run. They waved to Warren Kays, 67, Bill Fusak, 62, and Carl Humphreys, 58. Everyone was excited to be the first this season to ski the steep, powder-rich run. When they reached the slope's crest, Hurlen-Patano excitedly looked back at Scott. The huge, toothy grin on his bearded face was all the incentive she needed. She pointed her skis downhill and took off. Almost immediately, the snow beneath her gave way. In a millisecond, she realized what was happening. "Avalanche!" she yelled to Scott, who was not far behind. That he responded, fear in his voice, "This is happening." Instantly, both were pummeled by heavy slabs of snow that would carry them some 500 feet down the mountain. Hurlen-Patano felt it enclose her, moving quickly up her back and over her shoulders, then heavy against her neck. Snow filled the space in front of her and piled up around her thighs. She was engulfed. Scott, too, was swept downhill when his feet were ripped out from under him. He remembered the avalanche survival lessons he'd learned while working ski patrol: keep your head up. Try to swim. Stay on top of the snow. But the snow was too powerful and it tumbled him like a load of clothes in a dryer. When he finally came to rest, he was lying on his left side and almost completely buried, skis and poles still attached. But through the foot or so of snow on top, he could see daylight, and he could move his right hand and forearm. In his cocoon, he cleared snow from his face and told himself, "It's a shallow burial. I can breathe. I am alive. Stay composed." Hurlen-Patano had ended up partially buried in a tight squatting position. She scooped snow away and managed to pull herself out. Then her rescue training kicked in. She looked uphill to where she'd last seen Scott and shouted his name. She was relieved when his pole poked through the snow in response. He was about 10 feet away. She also called to fellow skiers Fusak and Kays. They were farther down the slope, partially buried, but were able to respond to her. She had no idea where Humphreys was. Scott couldn't move much under the weight of the snow. Still, he felt confident he could survive this. Hurlen-Patano now knew where he was and rescue was just a matter of waiting. With his free right hand, he cleared about 1.5 feet of snow above his face for breathing room. This was crucial. He knew that breathing his exhaled carbon dioxide for too long was poisonous. So, as he had been taught back at ski patrol, he focused on oxygenating, taking small breaths to conserve oxygen, thinking positive thoughts, and staying calm. As adrenaline coursed through her body, Hurlen-Patano knew she had to reach the other skiers and uncover them quickly so they could breathe. She focused on these thoughts: we are alive. Be fast. Stay in control. It had been several minutes since the avalanche had struck. Because she knew Scott was okay, Hurlen-Patano first crawled downhill to help Fuzak, who was buried up to his neck. As she knelt above him, scooping snow from his face, the air around her suddenly exploded. To be continued.